Hello, and welcome to World Talk with Charlotte Moyer. Today we'll talk about imperialism and how to get independence from it. We'll have three experts come in and talk to us about how three countries responded to imperialism. Dr. Donna Tennant will enlighten us about the non-violent response Ghana gave to the British imperializers. Dr. Rupert Geller will discuss Kenya's violent response. And lastly, Dr. Amelia Williams will help us out with India's responses. Though before our experts come to talk to us, I would like to give you a context about what imperialism is. It is the takeover of a country by another country. There are three possible responses to imperialism: violence, non-violence, and acceptance. Our discussion today will be whether violence, non-violence, or acceptance is the best way to respond to imperialism. We'll come to a conclusion based on the evidence, and so can you. And now please help us welcome our first guest, Dr. Donna Tennant.
Thank you for having me.
Hello, Dr. Tennant, and how are you today?
I'm great, thank you. And you?
Wonderful. Now, let's start with India's responses to imperialism. You see, I know that they had a violent rebellion in 1857, the Sepoy Rebellion, and managed to finally gain independence from Britain in 1947 by non-violence. But you see, there was a huge gap of time where nothing actually really happened. Can you elaborate on what happened there?
So what happened in India at the time was that people had accepted imperialism and then actually started to work for the British. So they were working for them, and they became sepoys and they were working under the British, and really they just had accepted the fact that they were going to be imperialized.
Okay.
That they were imperialized, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. And what did accepting imperialism achieve for the Indians?
It achieved absolutely nothing.
Really? Can you elaborate on that?
So for the Indians, basically what happened is when they accepted imperialism, they did not get any closer to being independent, they did not get any closer to stop being second-class citizens in their own country, and they became no closer to getting the high-paying jobs that were only open to the British. So in reality, the Indians achieved nothing when they accepted imperialism, except for the fact that they had some years of peace.
Okay. Now, Dr. Tennant, after the Sepoy Rebellion, the Indian people got a year of independence before the British government re-imperialized them. Why did they just give up and accept it after they had that freedom?
So the British government came back harder than ever, and they put more laws and more restrictions on the Indian people. And what really happened was that the Indian people thought that it was a better idea just to accept it and to try to work with the British, because many people joined the sepoys and got money, and they were able to retire.
Now, we all know that in the end, non-violence was the best response to the imperialism for the Indians. Why do you think that instead of violence or just acceptance?
Non-violence really affirmed the Indian people didn't have to stoop to the level of the British, and they weren't really doing anything wrong. You know, they couldn't, less people died, more people could march. It was simply a very clear way and very media catching way to get freedom, and non-violence really helped to get more people in, because a lot of people didn't want to fight and a lot of people didn't want to die, and this way they could only be jailed.
Alright then. Well, thank you for your input. We really all appreciate having you here as our guest. It was nice to have this conversation with you, and we'll keep in contact.
Yes, of course.
So, goodbye. Welcome back. And now we'll be discussing the imperialization in Ghana with Dr. Rupert Geller. Hi, and thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Rupert Geller, and I'm here to talk to you all about the imperialization in Ghana.
Remind us all about how Ghana gained independence.
Well, you see, Ghana gained independence with the use of non-violence. They didn't accept their imperialism and imperialization. They sure as heck did not use violence, except in extreme cases when officers would try and break up riots.
So you say that Ghana used nonviolence to gain independence. How exactly did they use nonviolence?
Ghana used the tactic of nonviolence as they organized staged strikes and riots with groups like the UGCC, the United Gold Coast Convention, and the CPP, the Convention People's Party. They used the tactic of nonviolence in their rallies and rarely ever got into violent fights except for a few.
So when exactly did Ghana gain their independence?
You see, Ghana petitioned for independence in May 1956, but they actually got independence from Britain March 6, 1957.
How long was Ghana striking before they gained independence?
They initially started strike over labor union and they initially started the strike right after World War II at around 1948 because of cheap labor laws that Britain was putting them under. So it was, I guess you could say, about 10 years until they actually reached independence.
So do you believe that the way that Ghana rebelled, do you believe that the way Ghana rebelled was in the most efficient way for Ghana to rebel?
Absolutely. I think that violence would have caused a lot of destruction to their society and would have resulted in deaths and even more imprisonments than they already had, and acceptance just wouldn't be fair to their people. So I think nonviolence was definitely the way to go.
Thank you for saying that quite so quickly. Thank you, Rupert, for coming in and talking about Ghana.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Is there anything else you would like to say about Ghana?
Good for you, Ghana. Hello there, and here's our final installment of the Imperialism segment that we have on today's World Talk with Charlotte Moyer. Now we're going to be talking about Kenya and how they finally got independence from Britain, who was imperializing them. So please join me in welcoming our guest today, Dr. Amy Williams.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining us today. So, Amy, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you, Charlotte.
Are you ready to talk about the imperialism?
Yes, I am ready to talk about Kenya.
Okay, let's see. Now, tell me, why did Kenya rebel in the first place?
Well, Kenya rebelled because a big part of Kenya was in poverty, and the Kenyan people didn't like that, obviously.
Okay. How did Kenya rebel to get independence?
Kenya used violence to gain independence.
How so? What tactics did they use in the violence?
Well, they had an organization, the Kenya African Union, KAU, made mainly upon the Kikuyu people, and basically what they did was they rebelled violently. They made an army called, and they called themselves the Land and Freedom Army, and the British military hit them back, basically.
Ah, okay. So when did they finally get their independence?
They gained independence December 12th, 1963. But one point to look at is that the Kenyan people did not win their rebellion. In fact, they lost. The United Nations simply looked at whether to give Kenya independence, and they discussed it with Kenya, and the negotiations occurred, and they negotiated Kenya's independence.
So, all in all, did violence really win their independence as well as other tactics might have been?
So, the use of violence really opened the United Nations. The use of violence really opened the United Nations' eyes. However, in the end, I don't really believe that it was violence per se that would have got. Yeah, violence got them independence, but it was really just because they had so many other the British had gone, had so many other countries had already gotten independence, and it was 1963.
That's all the time we have with Dr. Amy Williams about the topic of Kenya's imperialization. In conclusion, now we're going to come to a decision rationally on what is the best way to gain independence if you are imperialized. So, Dr. Williams, would you care to help me come to this conclusion with your expertise?
Well, I have talked to my colleagues that you talked to earlier, and I am an expert in Kenyan history. However, I do believe that nonviolence is the best decision. So one of the reasons that non-violence is so much more effective than violence is that so many people die with violence. In the Kenyan rebellion, more than 13,000 people died, and most of them were African warriors. And the thing is, non-violence is just the way to go.
And what about acceptance? Just because I think, in my opinion, based on things I've heard today, non-violence is the way to go, because violence results in deaths and destruction of society, and acceptance really doesn't get you anything that you've been fighting for.
So right now I'm Ronnie Margulies.
And I'm Charlotte Moyer.
And we're students that go to a Northern California public school, Hillsdale High School.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our take on imperialism. So we have a lot of cool references in there.
Yeah, we used them from a bunch of websites. It's from Britannica and World Book, as well as a few pieces of evidence from our notebook, workbook pages that we got in class.
That's why the annotations may not make all that much sense.
If it says page 6, it's because of our textbook and our worksheets that we got in class.
So from what you heard today about Ghana, Kenya, and India, what do you guys think is the best way to respond to imperialism? And back it up with evidence of maybe of other countries, because those aren't the only countries that have had to respond to imperialism, sadly.
There's a bunch more that if you'd like, you can research.
Yeah, there's like Botswana,
and Vietnam. We're connected.
Algeria,
Uganda.
Egypt, Uganda. So thank you, and Mr. LS, you're cool.
We enjoy your class a lot.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching, and leave your comments down below. Okay, bye!